I cried on the table, the lights were everywhere, my legs were in the air like this, like it was horrible.
I need everyone to tell me, when was the worst year of your life? Like, what was the worst year of your life? Back to my YouTube. It is your girl Honey. Hi people, welcome back. So in this video we are going to be talking a little bit about annual perfections, being in the 12th house to be specific, and I'm going to speak a little bit from my experience, from what I've witnessed with other people as well, and what to expect. So if you are completely new to annual perfections is basically a Time Lord technique in order to predict certain things happening in our lives. Now, just to simplify annual perfections, pull up your birth chart, and again the circular birth chart, so we can see every single house and every single sign. Now, to use annual perfections you must use traditional rulerships and also whole house system. Now, each individual house represents a particular year of our lives. So the moment you are born, right, you have perfected into the first house up until you turn 1 year old. Then you are in the second house, and you must look at each sign and in each house to find the rulerships of that sign. So if you are a Libra rising, Libra rules Venus. Where is Venus in your natal chart in terms of the whole house system? Hi people, so look, I had to just pause the video because I wanted to kind of just break this down, because I know quite a few of you guys were a little bit confused as to what annual perfections were and what the hell I was talking about in my previous video. So right here we have a chart, right? But this chart is breaking down all of the houses. So if you look in the center of the chart, you will see the ascendant, you will see the second house, third house, fourth, all the way around until the 12th house. So we're going to start off as the ascendant. Remember, I was saying the moment you're born, you are perfected into that first house where it says 0. Then the second house when you turn 1 year old, right? Then the third house, 2 years old, fourth house, 3 years old, and so on and so forth. So find the age that you are right now, or even find the age where you had a really tough year or a good year, whichever one that you're attracted to, and take yourself back, right, to that particular house. And remember, you must use whole house system to specify the house placements and also traditional rulerships. Traditional rulerships means that there is no Uranus, there is no Neptune, and there is no Pluto involved whatsoever. So if you're looking for Aquarius, you have to look to see, well, where's my Saturn? If you're looking for Pisces, where's my Jupiter? Do you get what I mean? So that's what you need to do in terms of traditional rulerships, is to see where those planets are. All right, so I will continue with the video, but I will stop again if I need to break it down. All right. Another thing to look out for is the house placement of your sun. So if you have your sun placed in houses 1 to 6, this makes you a night chart. If your sun is placed in house 7 to 12, this makes you a day chart. The most positive planet in a day chart is Jupiter, and the most negative planet is Mars. In terms of a night chart, the most positive planet in the night chart is Venus, the most negative is Saturn. So what does all of that mean? How do you determine what's negative and what's positive? So I'll give you an example of what has happened to me personally. Now, when I was 29 activates my 6th house, and my 6th house is in the house of Scorpio. Scorpio rules my 6th house. Now, in modern astrology, Scorpio rules Pluto, but in traditional astrology, Scorpio will be associated with Mars. Now, you have to look at what's also natally in your chart, because remember, your natal chart is your foundation. Now, in my 6th house is the house of health, well-being, your daily routines, your employment, and I have Pluto placed in that house at a particular degree. And people, please look at degrees. Please look at degrees. So when I was 29, I had Mars transiting through my 6th house. I was going through my 6th house, and I was watching him approach my natal Pluto. And I was like, oh, what's going to happen here? I'm a little bit scared. What's going to happen here? Now, remember, on that day, I actually had a procedure done for a health issue that I had, and it's all 6th house issues, a health issue that I had, but this procedure was booked about 4 months prior to the appointment. And I'm like, look at astrology, man. Look at how well astrology works and how favoursome it is. But again, even in terms of modern astrology, as Mars was crossing over my Pluto, right? Something happened. It was a horrible procedure. It was so painful. I cried on the table. The lights were everywhere. My legs were in the air like this. Like it was horrible. But that's what indicates the trauma going through this house and the motivation to do better and to be better, right? But that was my issue turning 29, was my health went all over the place. So most of you guys will remember when I spoke about like my dad, yeah, and him being diagnosed with 2 types of cancers. Well, it's crazy because my dad has Mars in Scorpio and his Mars is conjunct my Pluto. So on his Mars return, right, literally about 2 or 3 days before I had my procedure done, my dad had an operation. And that was during his Mars return. So Mars is also linked to health issues. Now, this is why it's important that we are still looking at our natal placements, even the modern rulerships, because in terms of Pluto, for me, Pluto, that was a turning point for me, where I felt like, you know what, I need to know more about my health. I need to take control of my health issues. I've got to take control. And then when you think about Mars ruled by Scorpio in annual Profections, it was Mars that generated all this energy, you know, towards that particular situation, that health issue that I had been dealing with for so long. But because of that year being perfected into the 29th house, the 29th year, all of my focus that year was trying to better my health. I literally tried several different diets. I was a vegan for a bit. I stopped eating meat. I was only having organic foods. Like I did juice. I did so much juicing. There's so many different things that happened throughout that 29th year that was transformational for me, with the Scorpio being there. But I had the energy and the motivation because of Mars going through that house to get shit done. Do you get what I mean? In terms of the 23rd year, the 23rd year, I think it's 23, 35 and 47 and also 59, right? During those years, we are perfected into the 12th house. So look at the 12th house in your whole house system and what sign rules that house. The 12th house is the house of isolation. For a lot of people, the 23rd year was terrible, because a lot of people felt very alone, very isolated. You almost feel like a burden. I think for me, my 23rd year wasn't bad. It wasn't crazy, but I'll tell you why. But for a lot of people, it's hard because you guys haven't got planets in your 12th house. So to you, it's very strange, feeling like you're just existing. You know, it can be a very depressive year. For example, you might have Aquarius ruling your 12th house, right? But Saturn is sat in the 8th house. And in this case, Saturn is ruled by Aquarius, remember traditional rulerships. So what we see here is your 23rd year will have a lot of themes in terms of death, rebirth, crisis, trauma, transformation. But you've also got to look, you have to look at the transits that you're likely to experience during that time. So especially now, right, over the next couple of years, we are going to have Saturn going through Aquarius. So if Aquarius, if you are turning 23 and Saturn is about to transit your 12th house, but also you've got to look to see what's happening with your natal Saturn. And also if you are a night chart, meaning if your sun is below the horizon, this is where we see it being a really, really tough year for you.
And the thing is, it all depends on whether you are a day chart or a night chart, and it also depends on the condition of your Saturn. Is your Saturn exalted? Is your Saturn in detriment? Does your Saturn aspect other planets that creates a difficulty? Is aspecting your sun? Is aspecting your Pluto? Is your Saturn a part of a grand cross? Like, these are the things you have to look into. So if you know that your Saturn is in a very difficult place in the chart, those planets that are aspecting your natal Saturn will also be affected. It's like having Saturn squaring your Venus. Venus is your relationships, is how you make your money. So again, Aquarius ruling your 12th house, Saturn is now activated. So that's going to affect your Venus if you
And what I experienced that year was so much unemployment, starting a job, ending a job, starting a job, ending a job. It was just awful. I did not feel stable at all. And it really played a toll on my mental health. So in terms of your ascendant, your 24th year, for a lot of other people is a time where you are starting fresh because it's the first house, it's new beginnings. It all depends on what you have there and where its ruler is placed. So for me, my 23rd year wasn't necessarily bad, but I remember feeling alone. And I remember that year I was partying so much. I was just doing the typical, you know, young people thing, just partying, having fun with friends. But I'd come home and I would feel alone. And as a 12th house person natally, I like that feeling, but that year in particular, I'd feel like the party can't finish. Like I need to be out, not wanting to do the inner work that I had to do in that year that I completely avoided. And I avoided it because I didn't want to deal with it. I felt like everything should be party and fun, but it just didn't work out that way for me. But that's what I grasped that year. I made a video where I spoke a lot about finding your soulmate, your lover, your husband, your wife, and you guys will be able to check that out. I think it's how to find your soulmate in astrology because it all depends on where you have Taurus or Libra in your natal chart. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about that, please check out my soulmate video. But yeah, everyone's going to be very different depending on where your ruler is, whether you are a day chart or a night chart. It all just depends on your chart. My worst year ever for me was at 25 years old. 25 years old. And I have Cancer in my second house. So 25 years old would make me a second house ruled person for the year. And that activates my moon. Now you have to look at planets that are in detriment, people. Planets that are in detriment have a major effect on your life. I have an 8th house moon. My moon is in Capricorn. It also opposes my Chiron that sits in the 2nd house. At the time, I had Pluto transiting over my moon. Right? I made a video where I spoke about the personal things I experienced, which was horrendous. You guys are free to check that out up here. My 25th year was horrible. And Chiron puts you through like a lot of losses. Yeah, like annual Profections predicted that I would move that year in the 2nd house. And again, there are multiple different ways to have a look to see what the hell is happening. But I think that year, even in my solar return, I think I had a Scorpio moon. Scorpio moon can indicate you moving house as well. In terms of annual Profections, me having an 8th house moon showed a lot of psychological changes, transformation of the home, and also with my Chiron opposing, it being a very wounding experience, very wounding for me. It literally, the things I went through, it literally killed me inside. It was crazy. You got to remember, if Cancer rules my second house, I feel so secure in terms of where my house or where my home is. I don't want to change shit. But Cancer and the moon also contributes to changes in this area. So I went through so much losses in terms of my possessions, in terms of my items. Everyone's chart is going to be completely different to the next person. For people, that is this week's video. I hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you guys soon, and I wish you guys all the best. Take care. Bye.